Hey there, Mark Brown. We're diving into this a little differently. You're not ready for this. I'm actually adding it to our Own the Stage workshop that we just finished, doing another one in May. But Mark, here's a clip from the 1990s, but there's a story of a huge lesson learned. Take a listen.
Cut out a piece of my intestine. They made a bladder out of that, hooked it right back up to me again, and I'm working out of the same unit. Now, I was tickled by this. I thought it was great. Very happy. I must tell you, though, that my intestine was kind of upset. But look at this from the intestine's point of view. The intestine is thinking, you know, this is not a promotion. Last week I was in food service. Now I'm in waste management.
Anyone can give a presentation. Few deliver unforgettable presentations. What's the difference? You're about to find out. Welcome to the Unforgettable Presentations Podcasts with your hosts, world champion speakers and coaches Mark Brown.
Your life tells a story, and there's someone out there who needs to hear it.
And Darren LaCroix.
Stage time, stage time, stage time.
Ready for some powerful presentation ahas? Let's dive right in.
All right, Mark, I know the clip is coming through a little soft, but here's a little bit more of that comedy routine from one of my mentors, Dave Fitzgerald.
I said, gee, Doc, I never had major surgery before. What's this going to be like for me? Am I going to be restricted afterwards? Are there any things I can't do? And he said, well, Dave, he said, I want you to know that you're going to have an incision from your belly button going down about 8 inches. And he looked at me very gravely at this point. And he said, you will probably never, ever do sit-ups again. So, of course, I'm thinking, how am I going to fill that void?
All right, so Mark, again, my comedy mentor, Dave Fitzgerald, but this was the 90s. There was something different. So this is something you have to get if you want to be world class, if you want to own the stage. So Mark, I watched him bomb. So here is my comedy mentor, and he brings up this thing called cancer in the comedy club, in his routine. He's the headliner. This is back in the 90s. Now it's more commonplace that people talk about such things. But back then, you didn't mention cancer in a comedy club on a comedy stage as the headliner. And I watched him bomb. And I was a wannabe at the time, opening act at best. I really had no place in telling him what to do. But back then in New England, there's only so many comedy clubs in New England. So all the good headliners do the circuit. I'm like, if you keep doing this, you're going to be fired. You're going to be out of a job. And I remember watching him bomb, and he said to me, I care more about figuring out how to make this funny, aka cancer, than how it goes tonight. I care more about figuring out how to make cancer funny, talking about what happened to him, than how it goes tonight. Do you care more about becoming world class than you do one show, one presentation, one keynote? And he went on to explain, Mark, that he said that when he was in his sales job back in the day, when he was in sales before he started stand-up, that he was actually at a Zig Ziglar conference. And I'll get to this quote in a second, but here's what he realized. So you and I talk about structure sometimes, but he said he had realized that he had to cushion the news about cancer to let people know he was in full remission before he used the C word, which means by doing it, getting the audience's response, he realized the structure had to be changed.
Correct.
And I think a lot of people aren't willing to experiment. Now, granted, you can find a low risk environment to experiment to see how the audience reacts. And here's what he said, Mark. He said that back in the day, he went to a sales convention, Zig Ziglar conference that he was running and teaching sales techniques. And here's what he said. Zig Ziglar said, anything worth doing is worth doing poorly until you can learn to do it well.
Yep.
Anything worth doing is worth doing poorly until you can learn to do it well. And he was living that principle. I'm like, that's like, wait, what? And I saw him figure out how to make his story funny by just cushioning it right up front, then bringing up, here's what happened to me last summer. Then they weren't worried, because you and I talk about this in the workshop coming up in May. If you want to join us, Own the Stage.
Right.
We talk about the thought process in the listener's mind. So he was losing the audience. So he realized he had to cushion what happened by saying where he's at now, because their initial thoughts are going to, this is like the last lecture. This guy's going to die next week. We're watching a dying man on stage. But you have to discover that. That's part of the power of a great coach, is seeing and understanding what the audience is thinking. And, okay, how can we make this to get the outcome we wanted? Now, here's what I saw as the funnier clips. Now, the end result. When you see a great speaker on stage, you're seeing the end result. You're not seeing the process of delivering it, getting feedback, adjusting it, delivering it, getting feedback, adjusting it, delivering it, getting feedback, adjusting it. And Mark, he had people coming up to him after he made it funny, saying, if you can joke about it, maybe I can finally talk to my family about my cancer. Like, that's huge.
Oh, that's wild.
He turned his comedy routine into a motivational routine, especially to the people who needed to hear it. But that was his goal. He cared more about the end result than how it goes tonight. And Mark, go ahead, Mark.
No, I'm just saying he was willing to put the work in. I don't want to discount or gloss over what you said. He had to experiment with it to find out what would serve his audience in the best way, and try to keep hammering and hammering and hammering. I hope my routine works. He was willing to put the work in. And you did say, find a safe environment to experiment, to make sure your structure serves your audience. So when you can key into what's in the audience's mind, you can then connect with them. And what you have to say, whether humorous, poignant, serious, inspirational, education, or other, is impactful and gets the result that you want.
Yeah, Mark, I just saw the impact. Like, you could see people like getting choked up and crying, talking to him after. It was just a few. So he made it work for the environment. It was funny and it was personal. So get this, he wasn't making fun of cancer. He was making fun of how, as a human, we deal with it. Now, that's a heavy subject. However, your subject, your audience, what are they thinking? How can you adjust it to make it better? Mark, when you were working with me on my championship speech, you saw my middle of my speech where I fell a second time was so strong that I couldn't follow it. Right. It was anticlimactic. So you helped improve the speech just by pulling out the second fall, and then putting it at the end made it so much stronger. Now, we're talking about structure, but this could be any words you say. In the middle of working on my speech, I said cherry tree, and it would send the audience off on an unnecessary tangent, a thought tangent, which is irrelevant to what we were talking about. As soon as I said cherry tree, they thought George Washington. So we had to take that out completely.
Yep.
And not say the word cherry tree, just because the natural tendency in America, right, not in Canada, not in other countries, because we were taught George Washington, don't chop down your cherry tree. That's one of the stories you heard growing up. So as soon as cherry tree, boom, tangent, lost audience, need to bring them back. Okay, let's not lose them in the first place.
Yeah, we always say, don't give your audience a reason to take a mental detour. And that means, and it goes back to what Darren has said before, the most important part of the presentation is the thought process in the audience's minds. And what we need to come to terms with as presenters is that we lead audiences to certain thoughts. The words we choose, the way we say them, we will plant ideas in their mind, often not explicitly, as in the case of the cherry tree. I'm not saying, hey, friends, please now think about George Washington. No, but you say you climbed a tree, think of cherry tree, here he was. Our brain goes to what? To previous learning and previous knowledge. So understanding how the audience thinks, knowing your audience, what's going on in their situation, their circumstance in their minds can help you determine what is best to provide to them, to give to them, and how best to structure it. And as Darren said earlier, one part of his speech was so powerful. His second fall, if you want to watch the video, go to YouTube and look for Darren LaCroix's 2001 World Championship speech. But the structure was such that he didn't have strong enough material to sustain that energy and surpass it. So what he was doing in effect was having a really strong moment, maybe his strongest moment, but halfway, two-thirds of the way through his speech, everything else, as pointed as it may be, or as pithy as he thought it was, would have had less impact because structurally it was not the best place. And owning the stage requires, in part, being willing to examine every aspect of your presentation. What's going to serve the audience best? How will they think in response to this? And then putting the work, as Darren says, putting the work in to make sure it becomes well structured and effective when you deliver your message.
Yeah, Mark, we just spent 3 days with 6 VIPs and watching them and being willing to do the work. So we say great speeches aren't written, they're rewritten. Great speeches aren't written, they're rewritten. And most people aren't willing to do the work, or their ego gets in the way, or they're just lazy, or they don't know what to do to make it better, which is where I was. Thank God I had you. But we watched, and we won't use names, but we watched 6 different people from various aspects of their speaking career. Some, one of the speakers has been a speaker for 40 years.
Right.
She was really good. So the feedback we gave her was different from some of the other speakers. However, all of them transformed over the 3 days. Some of them used, I'm thinking of our corporate presenter, she used the same story, but it evolved over the 3 days.
Time.
So the way we run this event is we have them all speak on day 1, we give them feedback, they go home, they work on it, and then they come back on day 2, and they either work on a different one or a different part of their speech or story, or they do it again. I was glad to see most of them did the same one again, so everyone in the audience could see the evolution.
Yes, yeah.
And then bringing back the 3rd day, some of them continued on the same one, and it evolved even more. And often, Mark, this is what I think most people don't get. Often, it's not a huge change.
No.
It's a subtle change, but it makes a huge difference.
Yes.
The key is knowing what are the subtle changes.
And sometimes subtle changes can be significant changes. Subtle changes can be significant changes. And we had evidence. And please don't misunderstand. We aren't making this about us. What you need to understand is we are there watching speakers as they undergo the changes. And we sit with them, with everyone present, and begin to talk it through. And there are times they'll be in the middle of their speech, they drop a new line, and they get ooh or a ah. And they realize it's a small change, but the audience reacts in a significantly different way to a word, to a phrase, to a look, to a movement. And that's when they put the work in. I saw one of the VIPs. I went to have supper, very quietly alone. And they walked in and they had 2 shopping bags. They had gone to 7-Eleven, Darren. They got supplies, bought some pizza to go, and they were going to their room to have a quick bite to work on the speech. That's the level of work they put in. They invest in themselves to come to the program, But what was gratifying for me was to see this particular VIP deliberately, specifically, intentionally invest that time. I won't eat out. I'm going to get my stuff. I'm going to go to my room so I can munch on it and get to work. We could see the evidence of the work they put in, because the idea of owning the stage is not only I need to make changes, what kind of changes, which may not always be massive changes, but to also understand how the changes impact the individuals in the audience. And I must point out really quickly, you mentioned subtle changes. There was one VIP who was there, and I said, we talked about transitions. We teach when you're on stage, you have a transitional phrase. To get from point A to point B to point C, or 1, 2, 3, it's wise to have a clear line of transition. And we've been teaching transitional phrase. You can then transition on stage. And they were I could see their eyes going through, wondering, how am I going to do this? Then I said, please also note, when you deliver a poignant statement, you can often use silence for transition. And the look on their face was like, what? I could use silence isn't a transition? In their thinking, I have to always say something. Yeah, thank you. Because I'm a speaker. I should be speaking. But there's power in the silence. So little nuances like that. And I point this out only to say I could see, not only here, I could see them absorbing the idea of what it takes to own the stage. And every day, every presenter got better and better and better. And it was evidenced by the response of the people in the room. So here's a question. Are we putting in the effort to get better and better and better? Are we going to revisit our structure and see how it looks? Are we willing to experiment? Do we use a Toastmasters club as a learning laboratory or a testing ground? Do we have people we can bounce our talks off? Bounce our talks off, bounce our socks off. Who we can share our talks with, or parts of our talks, who will advise us about these kind of subtle changes. And I invite you to think about where you are and who do you consult with to help you along the road in this process.
Yeah, one of the other ideas that came up that seemed to be common was just the naming the characters, letting us see the characters, letting us feel the characters. To them, it's the character, it's a story. But for us as the listener, we need to picture the scene and see the character and get a sense. So not just see him, give us a visual description, but give us a sense of them. Are they overconfident? Are they insecure? Just giving us an idea helps us picture the scene and go into the story and follow along. And these, again, there's subtle little changes. The character for the speaker was the same person. We're just now allowing the audience members to see the scene.
Yeah.
I remember one of them as our virtual VIP, where there was one of the characters who ended up working for him and then quitting. And I could see him sitting there in the cafeteria alone. And again, that reaction too, that's another common enhancement that was done, that showing the reaction to what was seen or said or done. As we say, reactions tell the stories.
Yeah. And you know, I'm glad you mentioned that, because we think of owning the stage. People often think of having the great presentation and then going great delivery in terms of how they speak and how they emote and how they move. But owning the stage is pretty all-encompassing, because sometimes, and we discussed much of this. We discussed this, I should say, at length. You having the hula hoop, the hologram, how to move with purpose, where to set scenes in presentations. And you had pointed out, Darren, you've seen even pro speakers who missed the concept of the hologram, who missed the concept of using the stage in a way that's really effective. And I went out on a limb this past weekend, and I used the line, and I said, if you can think of your stage, your platform, as your biggest prop. And I saw one of those, the puzzle dog looked like, What do you mean by that? And there would be those saying, what do you mean a prop? I can't move the stage. We think of props as being tactile, something in our hand, a writing instrument, a mobile device. It's a prop, a scarf, or a bowl with water, and you can dunk plastic in it, a sponge in it. However, my point was, if you think of how can I use my stage effectively to turn my presentation and my talk into an experience, if I can use Darren's holograms, the hula hoop, if I can set scenes on the platform, then the audience can actually see and experience, not only hear my words. So we talked about using the stage as in owning the stage, but also owning your voice, owning the characters. And there's so many dimensions to owning the stage. And I was really excited, Darren, by the response of our attendees and our VIPs at the Own the Stage program we had over the last 3 days. And for those who are listening or watching this, I would invite you to think seriously about your own level of proficiency. How well do you believe you own the stage? How well do you believe you deliver your presentation? How well crafted is it? These are all aspects of our presentation that add up to what happens when the audience sees us on stage. And it starts with introspection. In the same way we started with our own self-skills in inventory, which we always use at this event.
Yeah, it was great just seeing the ahas that some of these techniques, some of them have never seen before, and then some of them have heard it from us because they've been back to this workshop 2 or 3 times. I remember one of our friends who was a VIP before came back, and we had coached her, and she said like the first half of the morning, the first day, she got her value.
Yeah.
Because she was wondering, I'm like, am I going to get enough out of this? And boom. Because there's so much to absorb. You know, we're teaching world-class skills. But it was great seeing everyone applying it to one of their stories. And I'm thinking, too, of, I'll just create a name, Corporate Carly, who is an engineer. She was adamant about show me how to use the stage. And I love that question because she didn't know where to put the scene and the different places to help tell the story. I love that because they know they need the help with that. And they're asking a specific question. That's easy. But we had to, even though I've been teaching this for years, we almost had to kind of work it out in front of the audience and see what worked. It's not always an instant answer. Sometimes we've got to test it, just like Dave Fitzgerald when he went right into cancer, about having diagnosed with cancer before he cushioned it.
Right.
We've got to test and tweak, test and tweak, test and tweak. Mark, how many times do you think your speech was tweaked between you and your coach, David Brooks?
Oh man, the thing is, it was written with like 2 weeks, like 14 or 13 days to go. But I do remember now, for context, this is back in the 1990s when I was being mentored by phone and fax. If you're too young to understand fax, ask Siri, ask Gemini, ask Copilot, ask somebody. However, I can vividly remember being in my office at Reader's Digest in New York and getting to the fax machine and faxing my mentor, David Brooks, the master mentor, 1990 world champion. I would fax him 3, 4, sometimes 5 times a day. I was staying late in the office. I didn't have a computer printer at home back in 95. And I'd be communicating with him across time zones 3, 4, 5 times a day over several days. It's important to understand the power of putting the work in. And I go back to this, being willing with coaching to make the subtle changes that'll elevate your presentation, not only in terms of the script, but how you deliver on stage as well. So the answer, Darren, is myriad. It is many. I couldn't even tell you over 2 weeks.
Yeah. And so if it takes Mark Brown working on a 7-minute speech to do that many tweaks to create an amazing speech, people see the end result. They don't see the work. And here's what I want you, the listener, to understand. World class doesn't happen alone. World class and owning the stage takes getting feedback from a qualified coach. For you to try it, test it, see what works, see if they're listening, if the thought is landing the way you want it to. Okay, now let's tweak it again. And sometimes the audience will give you the best ideas as well. That's why I love doing it instead of just 2-on-1 coaching. I love doing it in the workshop because sometimes the audience had better foundational phrase ideas. That was another commonality that we worked on that was missing. So the audience gave some answers and insights that you and I didn't. But what I believe is our best asset is we create this group of people who are all in for each other. And it's the context, it's the environment that we create that I'm proud of. It's taken years to get there. And then we got that great virtual experience as well. So even the people online felt like they were right there in the room with us. They were very much involved. I see so many virtual experiences that are horrible. Like, no, get some help.
We're trying. And I will tell you this also. I'm sure somebody may chuckle at this. But we had, in this particular cohort, I was teasing two of our attendees saying, I'm going to have to break you two up because there were so many quick connections. There were so many quickly built relationships, and everyone was all in for everyone else. Mm-hmm. And our age range in our group, this particular cohort, was significant. We're talking decades of difference in age. Young as what, 25, 26 years old, to those who are, I will just say, significantly more mature, and leave it at that. I will just say one thing for context. One individual there had been in Toastmasters for half a century. So that gives you a bit of an age range there. But the atmosphere we create is one of collaboration, shared learning, shared insights. And I guess what I'm most proud of, Darren, and this is a bit of a brag, but I don't care, is that we create the environment where the attendees who are not the VIPs, as in special treatment, the attendees over 3 days learn coaching techniques from us that took us decades to master, and they walk away saying, oh, that's how a coach thinks. So the Own the Stage experience, shameless plug, is not just about helping 5 or 6 VIPs own the stage. It's about having an experience where everyone there learns, walks away with new insights, new knowledge. And one of my bigger thrills was seeing people using our keepers before we even told them what they were. They were filling out keepers on the sheet. So yeah, look, we enjoy doing the program, but we want you, our viewers, our listeners, our fans, we want you to own the stage as well. And we have myriad techniques that over combined 60 years we have learned that we've been sharing on this podcast and in these events. And if you believe you have more to learn, as I do, come talk to us. We'd be happy to serve you.
And Mark, one of my favorite comments came from Tina, I will use her first name, who had never seen us before. She was recommended by her friend Bob, who's known me, been to our events before, and invited her to come because she's got such potential. And one of my favorite comments, I don't know if you remember, Mark, but she said, I didn't see it coming. The dynamic that you two have together that made it so engaging. And it wasn't just sitting and listening to people spouting off wisdom.
Yeah.
I take that for granted just because you and I have been working, but they haven't seen this. And I really think that's one of the best values is our long-time relationship. And we like to banter and have fun and tease each other. And I warned them about the Mark Brown puns.
Yeah, thank you. That was
very
good of you.
Funny.
Appreciate that.
Very punny. Our main overriding message, in my opinion, is anyone can own the stage if you're willing to put in the effort and you're willing to get the help. Willing to put in the effort and willing to get the help. And it pains me seeing some big professional keynote speakers that they're really good, but they could be even better. But
it could be
they're good enough. So look, owning the stage is a choice. It's not easy. It's work, but you can truly own the stage. Mark Brown, take us home after I let them know. Go to stagetimeworkshops.com, stagetimeworkshops.com. Check out Own the Stage. I think we have 5 VIP spots left at the time of recording. That could change any day. And use the discount code POD, POD25. And I hope you consider joining us live or virtually in Las Vegas in May. Mark Brown, take us home.
We want you to own the stage. We want you to go from good to great to unforgettable. Join us. We'll see you next week.
After decades of coaching, we know that the biggest challenge most presenters face is not getting the quality of feedback they need to be unforgettable. If you're serious about receiving world-class feedback to become unforgettable, you can get 2-on-1 or 1-on-1 coaching from us by visiting getaspeakingcoach.com. You can also join us for ongoing training to elevate your skills at stagetimeuniversity.com, where we help good presenters become unforgettable.
Remember to subscribe, because if you miss a week, you miss a lot.
If you're going to take the time to prepare a presentation, make it unforgettable. After decades of coaching, we know that the biggest challenge most presenters face is not getting the quality of feedback they need to be unforgettable. If you're serious about receiving world-class feedback to become unforgettable, you can get 2-on-1 or 1-on-1 coaching from us by visiting getaspeakingcoach.com. You can also join us for ongoing training to elevate your skills at stagetimeuniversity.com, where we help good presenters become unforgettable.
Remember to subscribe, because if you miss a week, you miss a lot.
If you're going to take the time to prepare a presentation, make it unforgettable.
And thank goodness for Darren and Mark. I couldn't have done it without them. They're your partners the whole way. They go above and beyond.
It was so good to be coached by Darren and Mark. So having these two coach me elevated my delivery and elevated the power of my story.
It's been really, really amazing to go through this process with Darren and Mark. For me, I had never done anything like this, and the entire process was really, really amazing.
Thank you, Darren and Mark.
It was powerful. Whether you're a keynote speaker, emerging executive, or a seasoned pro, duo coaching will make you unforgettable.